Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of the Alehorn podcast. My name is Jason. I have 3 very special guests today, the members of Howling Giant. We have Tom Polzine on guitar and vocals.
Hello.
Zach Wheeler on drums and vocals.
Hey!
And the illustrious Seabass, or as his parents call him, Sebastian Altes on bass and vocals.
How's it going?
It's going good. So let's do the obligatory how did you get started questions here. So let's kick it to Tom and Zach. So how did you guys get together and have Howling Giant get started?
Well, I guess we were playing in other bands in college at the time. This was actually started as a side project for both of us under the name Skulldozer. So I was in a prog band at the time, and it was super fun, but it was one of those sort of things where I think we were almost taking ourselves too seriously. So we started Skulldozer to kind of write songs about our Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and just focus on heavy riffs, kind of taking influence from bands like The Sword or Sleep. And it's just one of those things that I think kind of started to develop the more we started jamming that project. We just found it was super, super fun, and the creative ideas just kept coming. And before you know it, at least for me, it became the side project, or the main project, rather, pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, same kind of situation. We were all just in different bands, like when we started this with our buddy Roger and our buddy Noel. And everyone was in a different band, and this was kind of the way to blow off steam. I know mine that I was in just kind of, shreddy metal, as it were, kind of getting a little too serious and getting ahead of ourselves. So it was nice to like blow off steam with this and write about Anthos the Minotaur or a dire bear.
Well, and a funny thing I'm just realizing is that our first show ever as Skulldozer was on 420 in like 2012. Was that it? 2011?
2011.
2011.
Yeah, I think.
At the Elks Lodge in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
What a legendary show.
Oh yeah, the two or three old men running the Elks Lodge had no clue what was about to hit.
They were not happy
with that show.
Yeah, they weren't like.
Yeah, they weren't
they
happy.
weren't happy that it happened. But well, the other band.
What did
too,
we have?
It was us and Knucklewagon. Knucklewagon
Yeah.
was like straight up hardcore. I think Eric got a tooth knocked out that night.
Yeah,
it was sick.
That dude, our buddy CJ, face planted on the concrete. I think from moshing. It was a high casualty show at that point.
Man, that was a more aggressive era, wasn't it? I
That
feel like
was,
now we kind of
yeah.
play to a lot more like the heady jams. People are out there kind of, in their own zone. Back then, you were getting teeth knocked out in Boston. Damn.
Yeah.
We need to go back to that.
It's the thrash album that's coming up that, we haven't talked about at all.
We haven't even discussed it amongst ourselves, but we'll commit to it on air tonight.
I will hold you to that from now on until we get that album. How did you get started playing, Seabass?
I mean, as far as music, myself, getting into music, I got a lot of from my dad, him being a bass player as well, playing a lot of metal. That's just kind of how I was raised. And so I was kind of raised in a more like less traditional sense of rather than learning, sheet music. I kind of learned everything by ear and, moved down to Nashville back in 2011 to go to school. And I've just been staying here ever since because the music scene is just so wide here. Everybody thinks it's just country music, but it's really not. And I was lucky enough to meet Tom at a bar that I was working at, and he mentioned that they were at the time looking for a bass player, and so I had an opportunity, and I thought, just what the hell, I'll just try it out. and it seemed to really work out in the end. We just kind of clicked immediately on the first practice jam that we had together, and it's been fun ever since. So yeah, it's been a really great time.
And now you're listed first
Yes.
on the album credits.
And I think, what people don't know is that we are actually referred to as Sebastian Baltus's Howling Giants.
Yep. I was originally going for Sebastian Baltus and the Howling Giants, but we had to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
It does have a good ring to it. So Marshall Bolton has just joined us, the new keyboard player. How about you? How did you get into playing music?
I basically started with this whole entire project by knowing Zach first and foremost. We worked together. We're both drummers. We worked at a drum shop for a really long time. I knew Tom just through Zach. He would always hang around there at the shop as well. Yeah, just kind of like similar music. We and Zach worked together for about 2.5 years or so, I think. Close to around that.
Yeah.
Most time. So we became really good friends, and throughout this humble jumble of trying to find a bass player in Howling Giant, I was actually playing music with Seabass. So I was already friends with him, and I guess last year it was just kind of one of those decisions where it's like, hey, we need some help on the road, selling some merch and doing this, and I like to skate and do that, and I travel with the boys and being a nomad, so I took the opportunity, and then now we're kind of in the process of making me a full-time member and putting it all on the stage, I guess, Kind of one day at a time. I don't really. It's kind of a funny time to play music now, but it's been an awesome experience this past year. I would say almost 1.5 years now.
Yeah, we took off that last tour. We picked you up in OKC, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we played a couple shows, and we picked you up. That was last year, right around this time, because we were touring around Psycho Smokeout.
Just another legendary 420 show. We're just all about these 420 shows.
Yeah.
They're huge staples in our career.
I'm all about it. I'm having some 420 tacos right now.
What's in them? What kind of cilantro is that?
It's the devil's lettuce, dude. It's that electric lettuce,
lettuce.
Yeah, man. It's all veggie.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, it's like boca meat, or it's like meat that tastes like beef, but it's all.
Is that jackfruit? What is jackfruit?
No, jackfruit is delicious though.
Sebastian, what's the rock and metal scene like in Nashville, in your opinion?
I'd say it's, from my experience, I mean, it's definitely underground, but it's growing. There's definitely a big classic rock scene. One of the bands being the Rock and Roll Residency, who have since played with members of Kiss and I think maybe Van Halen or something. But as far as the original rock and metal scene in Nashville, it's definitely big. Like, you see venues that are just that just are almost at full capacity for local bands, and it's really cool.
We started down here when it was just Tom and I and Roger, our old bass player. There wasn't a lot in the stoner scene. A band named Silent Monolith ended up kind of ushering us into the Springwater Supper Club in the early days. I remember playing. They had a Waste-Faced Wednesdays. So we went early on. I think, Tom, you met one of them when you were working at the old Frugal McDougal, right? And they invited us over. We went to the show. Who is it? Like Sun Voyager and
Sun Wheel. Sun Voyager is a
Wheel.
sick band
Nashville
from New
band,
York, that if you're not familiar with,
Yes.
you should check them out.
That's true.
But yeah, Sun Wheel and Silent Monolith. I was working at Frugal McDougal, which is a beer and liquor warehouse in Nashville. It was I mean, I guess technically the second job I had when I moved to Nashville. I worked at Cracker Barrel for 2 hours. I did the training and then I walked out. It was horrifying. So I got the job at the beer store, and like a couple of these gentlemen were walking through talking about like the sword. I think they were talking about the sword. And me just being the crunchy bastard that I am was like, you guys talking about the sword? Do you like riffs? It was really lame, but it was really cool. They were like, yeah, man, we kind of got to talking, and they ended up coming back to the store a bunch. And then one day they said they had a show. I told them I had a band, and they just kind of gave us a chance. And yeah, that was the humble beginnings way back at the old Springwater.
Yeah, and since then, there's just been a big surge of bands, especially after somebody like All Them Witches kind of paved the way, I feel like, for a lot of the heavier bands, but in the psychedelic indie kind of scene. There's a different, it's not the stoner doom that we always see when we go out, like all of our friends. There's kind of a more psychedelic scene in East Nashville. And I feel like All Them Witches kind of reignited a spark years ago with that. So there's a lot of that coming out. There's this group called the Nashville Psych Alliance that would put together shows, and Cold Lunch Recordings. They put together this fest called Spew Fest, which we just played the most recent one, and really tight-knit community. We're usually the heaviest band there, but there's some really cool music coming out of that as well.
Cool, man. When you guys tell people you're in a band from Nashville, or when you guys tell people you're in a band and it's metal, do they ever just lose interest right away?
I don't think so. I also almost hesitate to say that we're in a metal band. To be honest with you, I think we kind of fall in that weird category between rock and metal. We can be a little heavier, but vocally, it's clean vocals with a focus on harmonies, and there's a lot of kind of major work. Our music to people. Yeah, I don't think people really lose interest when we say we're in a metal band or when we describe ourselves as a rock band. But I think no matter what kind of music you're playing, you almost need to give someone a qualifier. It's like, okay, of course you're a rock band, or of course you're a metal band, but like, why should I listen to you? What's your angle beyond that basic genre? And that's where I think what we do is kind of cool, with a focus on kind of the concept stories and the fantasy twist as far as themes go. I think people get excited when we tell them that while it is kind of heavier and high energy, when you tell someone that there are like clean vocals with a focus on vocal harmonies, I think that can pique a lot of interest, and a lot more people are willing to kind of give us a chance because of that. And whether or not they dig us or not, it's really hard to say, but
and Tom, kind of jumping off of that, I agree as well that I don't exactly like to use the term metal, because I feel that whenever I say that, people either think that they go straight to, are you guys like Guns N' Roses metal, or are you guys like total death metal with crazy distorted vocals and stuff that most people
slam death.
Yeah. And so kind of describing that we're a little bit of an in-between, sort of progressive, but just a high energy rock band is what I usually end up saying.
The genre thing is always confusing. People dig way, way, way into it, as we all know. But the one thing I will say is I'll coin Steve Janiak from Devil to Pay. He once told us we were fuzzy yet uplifting, and that's the best way I think we can describe ourselves.
Good old Steve Janiak.
Are the Black Hole Space Wizard EPs inspired by the Mass Effect series?
No, actually, believe it or not, for as much as I'm into this stuff, I haven't played Mass Effect. So I realize that might be kind of a blasphemous thing to say, but Black Hole Space Wizard was kind of just a ridiculous concept album idea we had when we started Skulldozer. This was like way back in the early days. We were like, dude, we need to write an epic called Black Hole Space Wizard. And I think it was just like the most stoner rock buzzwords we could cram in one name. And we were like, that's so sick. So we started just writing music for it, and it was just super fun. It just started like kind of coming together, and we were like, dude, we need to flesh out this story. And we kind of kept creating these other levels to this story and this character like the Pioneer, this character like the Earth Wizard, who is the other side of the coin of like the Black Hole Space Wizard. There's this kind of duality, and the Pioneer is trapped somewhere in between those. And so yeah, I mean, it really just started out as a hilarious mashup of stoner rock buzzwords, and I think it's fucking rad.
Did we ever think in like 2012-ish, when we were really thinking about this, that we would record them in an episodic EP series? It's crazy that we've been able to put some of it together.
I don't think we ever like almost intended to do anything legitimately as Skulldozer, but I think that's how like everything great kind of happens. You know, it's like it just has to be this stupid fun thing. And I think listeners can latch onto that sometimes, and people just enjoy like, oh, dude, they're writing a song about a black hole space wizard. Sure. Yeah, let's see what that's all about. And yeah, I mean, it's been fun for us. So that's kind of the creed, really. If it's fun and we dig it, we're gonna
I guess all we got to do is wrap up the story now.
So
but,
yeah,
you know, we'll get to it.
We're going to get to it. And it's going to be, well, no, I can't. I was going to say it's going to be the greatest thing ever. But now we're going against what we said before. We're trying too hard. We need to write more
Black Hole
songs
Space Wizard Part 3 will be
abandon.
Awful. How about that? Set the bar low.
What I can promise
It'll
is that
exist.
it will exist. It will exist.
You heard it here first.
I'd like to play Mass Effect now that we're on it. I got
I've
Elder
heard
Scrolls.
they're
broken.
amazing games.
I think so. I think I'm going to dive back.
Oh, you're getting back in the Elder Scrolls game. Dude, I need to wrap up Red Dead Redemption 2. I've been just side questing. I've been collecting pelts. I've been killing O'Driscolls. Catching horses, you know?
Zach, did your wife mix and engineer this album and also your past releases?
Yes. So we met in college in the Skulldozer days, of course. And she recorded the first couple tracks. You would get studio time at our college. You could sign up, but like the lower you were on the totem pole, the worse the hours were. So I remember going in, she got like a 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. session. And that's where we recorded 2 songs. Well, we went in to record Tusk of the Thunder Mammoth originally. And we had some time at the end and recorded the first incarnation of Whale Lord. So, you know, she moved down. She was a year behind me, moved down a year after me to Nashville. We started to record the first EP, and that was all in Tom's bedroom. So there's a hysterical picture somewhere of like all of us crammed in. We have just one Sapphire 8-channel interface, and we did just some really funky setups in order to record like everybody live. You know, we overdubbed the vocals later, but just kept on trucking from there. Eventually we would start going to studios, bring her with us. And now we actually built a space in my basement that we record everything down there. So it's super convenient for us now to track, and we have other bands in all the time, but she records everything. She mixes everything, and then we pass it off to mastering. So she is just as much of a member, I'd say, at this point.
At least as much
as
Sebastian.
There's a hierarchy.
Okay. I know that she's more of a member than I am. I get it, okay?
We are married. Yeah.
You're like the jackfruit of this band, Sebastian. You're super interesting, but I don't really understand it.
I mean, I'd have to agree with that.
Is the Space Between Worlds album the first album you guys recorded for Blues Funeral?
Yeah, that is the first album on Blues Funeral. We were talking with Jad actually like ages ago. I think he reached out to us through some email and was kind of asking what we were intending to do with Black Hole Space Wizard and just what our plans were in the future for albums. And so I mean, that dialogue was actually happening for quite a while.
Yeah, Jad actually works for Ripple and Magnetic Eye on top of all of this. And our first contact with Jad was for the best of Pink Floyd when Magnetic Eye was doing the Wall Redux. So he got us on that, and then we just kind of kept chatting over the years, and that's when he was putting Blues Funeral together. So us and Domcraft were the first two bands that he signed for that label.
Is it a lot better having label help, or do you miss that DIY spirit?
I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by label help, because we've gotten so much help from Jad in the way of like kind of advice and connections, but it's not really the sort of thing these days where you get like financial help from a label, if that makes sense. So I mean, we still have the like creative freedom to kind of write and record what we're going to do. But a guy like Jad and Blues Funeral has just been incredibly helpful when we're trying to, figure out what should we be doing next? What should we kind of be focusing on? And what do you have in mind for like releases and ways to help push this? So, I mean, it's really cool to have that resource. I think whether or not a label is right for you and your band is a really difficult question to answer right now. But I think that Blues Funeral.
Yeah, and with the DIY part of it, there's still so much of what we do that's DIY. And I saw your episode before this was with Adam from Horseburner, and those are some DIY. Like, they kill it. They do everything themselves. I mean, we were doing that for such a long time, but it's not like we've abandoned that aspect of what we do in any way. While we work with a booker, sometimes half the time, I feel like they show up like with experiences that we had just in past years. They'd be like, "Well, I have most of the shows booked, but we got these big gaps, so we'll go in and we'll fill out the gaps." There's still that part that we do.
Yeah, I still feel like we do almost like everything, or at least help. It's like our hands are on everything. I think the idea that you can be a band these days that can just write music and let someone else take the reins, I think that's kind of a misguided idea. Like, maybe for some people that works. I've just never experienced it. I think that if you want to get anything done, like, you really do need to be willing to do it yourself, or reach out and just offer to help and figure out what you got to do. But you're very accountable for your own success to a degree. So when it comes to like, do we miss the DIY vibe? I would say we're still very much in the DIY vibe, but luckily we've met enough people along the way that can kind of offer advice and help us out in all these areas. But it is still very hands-on.
Yeah, we're playing Pac-Man. And the label and the booking agent, they're the little power balls that enable us to eat ghosts. Come on.
Devour the ghosts, yes.
Are you Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man?
I see myself more as a Miss Pac-Man. I think if you want to get into that on air, let's just
we have nothing
saddle up, cowboy. No. Yeah, I mean, I'd say we started out as Mr. Pac-Man, but then over the years, I would say we've picked up the pace. There's just something a little bit more aggressive about Miss Pac-Man. A little faster pace, a little higher stakes, a little more story
and
development
a wardrobe
along
that
the way.
kills.
That bow.
Have you ever thought about making Zach wear a pink bow when he plays live?
Have we considered? I didn't hear what you said, but I assume it was. Have we considered making Zach wear a bow when he plays live? Can I just insert that as the question? Because the answer is yes.
There was a show years ago, and it was a Halloween show that we were playing with a cover band that was short-lived, Tom and I. And I think I wore, a nice. This was
which band was this?
Casual Encounters, of course. Yes.
Oh yes, Casual Encounters. Dude,
classic rock cover band. I think my costume really ended up being a bow tie that had lights on it. I was pretty much nude except for that. Yeah,
kind of a Chippendale vibe. We were talking about last Halloween. We were going to go as the creepy twins from The Shining. We kind of last minute ended up going as the Steve Zissou crew, but I think there was at least a brief talk.
It's a much cheaper option for sure. Going as the Steve Zissou crew.
Man, but the other way would have been sick. Just like, I guess, again, we would have had to dress as girls. I'm really learning a lot about myself over this recording process.
I mean, I just wanted that because I just wanted to see Zach dressed up as Danny playing drums on a tricycle.
So, Seabass, in your mind, it was you and I as the creepy girl twins?
See, I disagree. I think Tom and I would have had the dresses and Seabass is Danny because he's the youngest of all of us, so it makes sense. We would have had to... Yeah, exactly.
He still has his innocence.
How did you get Jason Shee from ASG to guest vocal on Ice Castle?
Yeah, Jason Shy. So I think that was suggested by Jad on Blues Funeral. And when he suggested that we reach out and have Jason guest on it, I mean, I just I lost it, man. I mean, ASG has been one of my favorite bands since I guess 2008. But when I got into them, I just got in super deep. It was whenever their album Win Us Over came out. So Jad basically said he would help put us in contact with Jason. And we just kind of started talking, and I feel like we're super blessed. We were super lucky that he had the time and was willing to record.
What a
on that
skilled,
track.
humble musician too.
Oh man, amazing. Yeah. And didn't really take, we didn't even have to really give him much direction almost. We were like, here's the track. Here's kind of what we're thinking for the vocal melody. And he just went in and just nailed it. So email, baby.
Yeah.
The cyber age. You just got to reach out to old Jason, and someone answered on the other end of that void. It was super awesome.
How was the Psycho Las Vegas show? Was that the biggest show you guys have played at the time?
Well, which one? We've done a couple now. So we did the Psycho Smokeout, and we did Vegas on, what was that, a Friday or Saturday?
The first
Zach?
one
do you
we
remember
were on
the first year?
Saturday.
Yes.
Was that in 2017?
2018.
2018? 2018. Yeah, and then 2019 was both Smokeout
and the pool party. So, yeah. So, I mean, that first Psycho Las Vegas, our buddy Mike Kerr, that's why we were without bass player at the time, and we were just meeting Sebastian. The first one, we drove out in the hearse while we still had it, a really treacherous journey. We, at that point, that was probably the biggest show that we'd played. And then Smokeout was really awesome. And then this past year with the pool party was, I would say, the hottest show we've ever played.
It was about 110 degrees when we went on, and luckily we had fans, blowing some air at us.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this was the pool party. We were outdoors, 3 o'clock in Las Vegas when it's 110 out. Not a cloud in the sky, just beating down. So, I mean, that was a big show, but there was a huge gap in the audience. We had the first row of people, a couple rows of people, and then there was just no one. So when we started playing, I was like, oh, dude, no one's here. But then as you're playing, you look out and you're like, dude, it is absolutely packed, but everyone's just farther back in the cabanas and basically seeking refuge in the shade. And the people in the front, The people in the front managed to get some shade from the actual band, like band shell or the band, whatever you would call it, the stage. But there's a clear line of where the shade ended, and it was just sun beating down, and there was no one standing there because literally it would melt you. I took my Flying V out of its case, and the tuning pegs were so hot to touch. I had to like leave it in the shade for like a half hour before I played.
Also, they would try and have ice cold waters on the side of the stage, but even though when they would put the ice in the tubs, not like 10 minutes later, it would just be completely melted. And so you'd just be drinking hot water while trying to play. And that was kind of a tough thing to get over, but we pushed through.
But I mean, incredible show, incredible weekend. We were lucky enough to just kind of put a little break in our tour and spend the entire weekend at the festival, catch up with buddies from all over, gamble a little bit, you know. Thank you,
Yeah,
Lord of the
that
Rings
could've
slot
been.
machine, you know. Really blessed me up.
What'd you win, Zach? Like $40?
No, $110.
Big money.
Sweet big, baby. High rollers. So I don't know if they do it anymore, but the key at the time was like, if you're sitting at a slot machine, they keep bringing you cocktails. Granted, they're weak, but they're free as long as you're gambling.
Oh yeah, that was the way.
I think they've amended that, though. I think now, especially with this festival, they see crunchy duders like us, and they're like, nah, we get your game. You're not getting these free cocktails
I don't
anymore."
know. I don't know about that because I still got a free cocktail just from sitting at a penny slot machine, literally doing nothing. So
Yeah, you're not as crunchy as
Well,
Tom.
Sebastian, you're a young, handsome man.
Dude, you should see me right now. The quarantine crunch, it's amazing. The neck beard's growing, and I'm like, dude,
Quarantino,
let's just
baby.
let it go. Just see what happens. Dude, yes. Quentin Quarantino. But to go back to the question, though, I guess, like, yeah, Vegas, all three shows that we did for Psycho were huge, were amazing, and, I mean, to this day, they were probably the three best shows, in my opinion. Even the one out in the hot Vegas sun, you know, there were just so many people at that pool. It was an honor to play it, and they were definitely some of the best.
Cool. That festival looks like a blast every year, man. I want to play one day. What's the latest plans for rescheduling your European dates?
Ooh, that's difficult. We went through an entire saga. So we were supposed to be out with Horseburner for most of the tour. We were going around Ripplefest in Cologne, and we were about to do 2 weeks with them. Then we were going to hop over to the UK and tour with Sergeant Thunderhoof, who we just we're going to put out a split through Ripple with them later in the year. It's hard to say. All the bookers that I've been talking to have been insanely hesitant to give me anything. We've been lucky enough to, get vouchers back at least for our plane tickets, which is just like, we didn't even know if that was going to happen. We thought we'd have to eat the cost and completely. And thank goodness we didn't have any gear booked or anything else yet, and didn't have deposits down before all this went down.
Our poor planning ended up helping us in the
Yeah.
end. It was less to cancel.
Yeah. So at this point, I know they rescheduled Ripplefest Cologne for late August, I believe. And the thought was to try to go back around then, but I don't know how realistic that is at this point, and we're just trying to keep all the bookers we were talking to abreast of what's happening over here, what we're able to do. We're not all working quite as much, so we're not able to scrounge away for a European trip right now. So it's kind of a wait and see. I was hoping to do it before the year was out, but it might end up just going completely to spring of next year. It's really hard to say.
Basically, as soon as it's safe to do so, like, we intend to get back out there. It's just a really difficult position because I think for us as a band, like, we have a lot of drive to get back out. We really desperately want to, but it's kind of being weighed on the scale of what is safe, when is it okay to do it, and I don't want to be making an act that is irresponsible to go out when it's too difficult to do so, when it's too risky for a fan to want to come and see us. I just don't want to even put ourselves or a fan base in that position where they're having to make that call. So it's just one of those things where we got to pay as close attention as we can, and as soon as it's safe enough to do so, that's when we're going to get back out there.
Will Marshall be joining you when you go over there eventually?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby. So Marshall was going to come the first time through, and if anything, now we have time to get him fully tuned up on that piano. We're going to be rocking and rolling.
The piano.
Marshall's first show with us officially, so he's been doing merch and then just kind of learning all the tunes. We were going to go to Europe. He was going to sell merch, come with us there. We were going to take that time to continue to teach him parts when we're in the van or anything else like that. But now we have all the time in the world to teach him, and he will, I'd hope the next time we're allowed to stream that we could get Marshall in. So we're just waiting on the couple of laws to be lifted when it's safe to do so.
Zach, will you make Marshall a drum tech since all he has to do is set up a keyboard?
The most beautiful thing is when we started bringing Marshall with us, and occasionally I would go and have to go talk to, I don't know, a promoter or club owner, and I'd come back and my kit is like set up. And it's not just set up, like, no offense to Tom and Seabass, but if they were to set it up as a guitarist or bassist, they might not know the little things like I like to adjust. But like Marshall knows. Marshall's instinct really kicks in when he sets up my kit. And he goes, what would Zach like? So I'd like to keep that sort of vibe
100%.
going. But,
that's also because we hung out so much and we talked drums so much for a really long period of time in both of our lives, and then we're on the road with each other, so it's just like, oh, I already know what Zach likes. Like, get out of my way. I already know this goes here.
I recall many shows now since we've been touring with Marshall selling merch where I would like do something or kind of mess up just a little bit and look back to Marshall and he's just kind of shaking his head or giving me some look. I'm like, yeah, I know.
That's out of pure friendship and honesty right there.
I just want to add that having a bass player set up your drums sounds like a terrible idea.
I wouldn't want that kind of pressure. And also, I really have like an easy setup compared to everybody else in the band, because I literally just have my bass guitar, a couple cables, amp, cab, and one pedal. That is it. I don't even have a tuning pedal. I just have a little clip-on tuner. And so I'm usually able to get set up in like 2 seconds. And then I'm just kind of waiting around for everyone else. But if I were to help out with drums at all, I'd probably break something. I know, honestly.
Sebastian, you should be my guitar tech. If you've got all this time.
All right, guys, that does it for my general questions. So we're going to go to the lightning round portion of the podcast. Just pick whichever answer suits you. Sword or axe?
Sword. I'm a sword man.
Bow or crossbow?
I'm a crossbow guy. Gotta be the crossbow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go crossbow as well.
I mean, a bow is sick, but a crossbow, I don't know, man. Point and shoot. It's nice and easy.
All right. Wizard or warlock?
Well, that's gotta be warlock. Warlock, 100%.
Probably go with warlock as well.
Oh, wizard for sure. Oh.
Black Hole Space Warlock. It's the next series we're going to work on.
Throwing star or throwing knife?
Throwing star for sure.
Yeah, throwing star is dope, but I just feel like a throwing knife's more effective.
Yeah.
I stand by a throwing knife.
I feel like...
Well, totally. It's not a matter of being effective. I want a throwing star to like... Remember in South Park where they threw one at Butters? It needs to hurt, but not kill. That's kind of the idea.
Well, what could you have more accuracy with, though? A throwing star or a throwing knife? Like, I'd feel like a throwing knife would be more accurate.
Oh, false. Star is definitely more accurate.
Yep,
You got all those
better
angles.
I think
aerodynamics.
we're split. I'm standing by throwing knife on this one.
And to each their own. I'm with you, Tom.
Fictional land that you would hail from.
Fictional land I should hail from.
Oh, I got to go Middle Earth. Yep.
That's an excellent question, man. I haven't considered it. Hokai. It's the land that my character in our latest Dungeons
That
and
would be,
Dragons campaign is from.
From the Kingdom of
It
Rohan.
borders the land of the Fae.
Yeah.
So your classic like sprites and fairies and evil warlocks, they hail from this almost mystical land that exists somewhere between the fabric of reality and this kind of spiritual Fae land. And the name of that town near there is Hokai. So I
Did
think
we
that's
lose
where
Tom?
I would hail from.
No. So you're a Middle Earth guy as well. I'm gonna have to say that I had thoughts about probably somewhere in the Outer Rim in the Star Wars world, but if we're talking, it depends on the era for me because there's some real rough times to be alive,
Dude,
in,
yes.
in all of
That's
these.
an
I
amazing
think the
place to be
safest
from.
spot would be Middle Earth. I'm thinking Hobbit.
Yeah.
Take her to the Shire. I want to keep it easy. I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing these days, and I'm just trying to chill out.
All right, guys. Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering?
For sure.
You can't make us choose between those two. Why can't it be both?
Magic the Gathering for sure.
Man, I feel like I have to say Dungeons and
Oh,
Dragons.
it's Dungeons and
That
Dragons
was just
for
like
me.
some of my
Yeah.
fondest memories, like getting into the whole nerddom. It was Dungeons and Dragons, but Magic the Gathering is an amazing game.
Skeletor or Cobra Commander?
I feel like Skeletor, yeah.
Skeletor. Yeah.
Yeah, Skeletor.
Black Hole or Wormhole?
Whoa. I feel like we got to go Black Hole. Like I got to stick by my brand.
Black Hole.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Alien or Predator?
Dude, Team Predator. Team Predator, baby.
Alien.
Predator.
Oh. Dude, Alien.
Alien for sure.
Alien invasion or Kaiju invasion?
I would prefer to be involved in a kaiju invasion. 100%. Well, let's consider that alien invasion. I mean, that's probably already happening right now.
Yeah,
Their presence
kaiju.
is going to, I mean, it's not going to be made aware to us. We would know if the kaiju were out there rising from the oceans.
Yeah.
Yeah, prefer visible threat.
All right. Zach, best Rush album?
Oh,
Oh, God. This is... Well, I guess I got to go with probably what I listen to the most would be Moving Pictures. Although I've been really getting into a lot of their recent albums like Clockwork Angels. I think that was like 2012 or something like that. There's something that disconnects for me with a lot of bands where I feel like anything mid 90s or later from any of these bands from like 70s 80s, for some reason I just never listened to them, but now I'm going back and like some of the newer Maiden stuff, some of the newer Rush, obviously I think Clockwork Angels was the last one that they made, I think, but still incredible albums. I don't know why I hadn't listened to them before. I wasn't dismissing them, but man, Clockwork Angels is a great one, but Moving Pictures takes it for me.
Okay. Tom, what's your best Sabbath riff?
My favorite Sabbath riff? Oh, dude. I feel like you can't even choose one because they have created like all of the greatest riffs of all time. Yeah, I think when it comes to Sabbath, I just have to say no comment. I think I can't even comment on that because, like, as soon as I put one on record, I'm going to hate myself for saying it. But Tony Iommi, I think, is just, I guess he's starting to get a lot of love, or I guess he's always had a lot of love in the stoner scene, but, like, even across that, it's like, I just feel like sometimes it took the world too long to see the genius in his songwriting and in his riff writing. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I don't think I can really comment on that. I'm going to back out. I'm going to wash my hands of this question.
Seabass, Balls to the Wall or Blood of the Nations?
I mean, come on. Balls to the Wall. That's, first of all, I mean, that kind of question is just... Balls to the Wall is classic as much as I love Blood of the Nations. Funny enough, Blood of the Nations had the album cover with the peace sign that had blood all over it was my dad's hand that they shot that in Nashville. But no, I've listened to Balls to the Wall ever since I was a little kid, and my dad still has the bass that he used on that recording in his basement that never goes anywhere. It's his baby. And so whenever I touch that thing, he always gets really pissed, which makes it really fun.
Did you ever meet Udo?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How tall is that dude?
Really not tall at all. I mean, granted, I'm a tall guy, but he's probably like, I don't know, 5 foot something, maybe a little bit more. He's a really short guy, absolutely incredible voice, and he's still just an awesome dude.
Marshall, let's go with best John or favorite John Lord performance.
Honestly, I'm not super familiar, but yeah, that's what I would have to say. If I had to.
Okay, how far it is?
What did you say? One more time. Sorry, broke up.
Highway Star. It is then.
Yeah.
I mean, Highway Star is a classic. There was an shoot. I'm trying to think of another song. I'm sorry, I'm stealing your question, no, Marshall. But I probably have to go Space Truckin' as well. I think he's just absolutely great on that song.
Yeah, I think for Marshall, his background in history is probably stronger in drums than anything else. Yeah. He's he's still learning the ways and the history of the keyboard. He's learning to respect it, and he's learning to respect us.
We told him, yeah, he has to learn the entire history of piano and how it evolved into
I'm not in
organ
full form
before we
yet,
even let him touch his instrument.
Once I've reached that climax, I think I'll have a full understanding of what my favorite John Lord performance is. So it's coming.
Can't wait till you climax, dude.
All right, Marshall. We'll just go with your favorite Bon Jovi song.
Probably just Living on a Prayer, of course. But if I had to pick the other one, I would say You Give Love a Bad Name. That's probably my 2 favorites. So,
Mr. Bovine Jody.
Free beer tickets or free meal?
Free meal.
Free meal. I can get my hands on a beer. I know that there's going to be a way if I'm trying to drink beer, I can find me a beer. I need to be
Dude, I'm
fed.
a hungry boy. I got to get that food.
Give me that free.
I have to go beer tickets on that one.
Man, whenever we stay at a hotel, if they have like the continental breakfast, we're like shoveling those awful processed eggs, like the scrambled eggs. We're finding ways to transport it We're like hoarding out all that food.
I'm stuffing them in my pockets, putting them in my socks. Any
It's all about
crevice
the
I
free
can
meal.
find, those eggs are going.
Most misunderstood Looney Tunes character.
Elmer Fudd.
The question was misunderstood Looney Tunes character?
Yeah.
Who was like the Spartan alien? What was his deal?
Marvin
Marvin the Martian. I just don't understand him. Therefore, I think he is misunderstood.
And let's talk about Elmer Fudd for a second. He was just doing his part in population control.
Yeah.
You know?
I think anyone can understand that.
He
NES or SNES?
Man, I feel like for me, maybe SNES. It feels dirty to say it, though. Like, I know NES is amazing, but I think I have some of the fondest memories playing, like, what was it, Turtles in Time, when that came out for SNES? Was it Link's Awakening? Or Link Between Worlds? Which one was it? What was the Zelda game? I can't even remember now, but I feel like SNES. Oh, but dude, that classic Zelda game was so amazing. Man, it's a hard call. I think I have to stand by Super Nintendo for me.
How about you, Seabass? What you got?
I never really played those consoles, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably go NES.
Is it because it had 2 buttons?
Is it because it had what?
Is it because it has 2 buttons?
the crowd pleaser.
The controller?
Yeah,
Sebastian.
it's easy. I mean, remember, I'm a bass player. Like, if anything is shortened down, it's
easier.
fine. You know?
Yeah.
I got you. All right, guys. Last question here: Spanish flu or Black Death? What you got?
Oh man, let's go Black Death. Let's go out heavy.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. I mean, if I'm going out, like, being able to say that you died from Black Death.
You know what I'm saying? While I'm listening to Black Tusk, hell yeah, like let's do it. You know?
Spanish flu sounds sexier. I feel like I could have a Calimocho, have a nice red wine. Oh, dude.
I think Spanish flu does sound sexier, Tom. Like, it sounds a little more just... I know it would wreak havoc on our bodies, but it sounds a little more appealing, sensual, possibly. You talked about having a nice...
That's what I'm saying. I'd have my feet dunked in a giant bowl of paella. I'd be like smoking unfiltered cigarettes and drinking red wine until I die. I imagine that's how people go with the Spanish flu. That's just for me. It's not for everyone.
All right, well, that's been Howling Giant with slight technical difficulties tonight. Make sure you check out their live stream that they did on YouTube and also stream their stuff on Spotify and other streaming platforms. Also, buy some merch from them and look out for tour dates, hopefully in the not too distant future, but we'll see. Also, try to catch their Dungeons & Dragons live stream on Twitch whenever they get that going. It should be a blast. My name is Jason, and thanks for listening. We'll see you on episode 7.